Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the conversation series. Today, I have in-arena host for the Anaheim Ducks and automotive host Allie Kay here with me, and I'm gonna kick it over to her and let her introduce herself, and then we're gonna get into this.
Hi, Danielle. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited. I'm Allie Kay. So I actually live in Southern California. I'm in Orange County area, born and raised in SoCal, and I have not left. I love it here. But yeah, over the years, I've grown into sports hosting and reporting. Currently the in-arena host for the Anaheim Ducks, and then I also do automotive hosting as well.
Very cool. And so I would love to start it back to your very beginning and just kind of what got you into reporting and then specifically sports.
So I grew up in a sports loving family. I grew up with two brothers. They're twins. We're all 18 months apart. I'm the oldest. I know they're twins, but they look nothing alike now, of course. But growing up with two brothers like that close in age, I feel like it definitely made me, tough. And I could either be a girly girl and I was in dance classes, or I was riding BMX and ice skating and playing hockey with my brothers. So I feel like that goes way back, but hockey and specifically my mom, so I'm born and raised in Southern California. My mom's from back east, so she grew up in Pennsylvania in a small town outside of Pittsburgh. So they grew up basically where they in the winters would freeze their driveways, right, and ice skate and play hockey, and like that was the whole thing. So when she came to California and then had kids and raised us, she's like, I want my kids to be on ice and get that same East Coast living that she had growing up. So yeah, she put us all on skates, God, when we were, I want to say I was 3 years old. And then I actually got into figure skating and competed for years doing that. And then both my brothers played hockey, but I always, wanted to be like the boys too. So I had hockey skates and figure skates.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that started. I mean, I grew up at an ice rink, literally doing homework while my brothers were playing hockey, and then I would go and practice afterwards. And it was actually within the Ducks, organization, and all their rinks back in the day. They used to be called, it was Disney Ice, and then it went to Ice Palace, and now the Ducks franchise, they own all of these facilities that I literally grew up skating at. So it's pretty neat.
Legitimately, if you look back at your experience with the Anaheim Ducks, you started out as a power player for the Ducks, which if people don't know, it's sometimes you see them on the ice during timeout if you're at a live game, but then you've climbed up to media spokesperson and now on camera host and in arena host. Climbing your way up through the Ducks organization, what has that experience taught you?
Oh my goodness. I think just to never give up, to be completely honest. So when I first started with the Ducks, I was 19, 20, I think my first year. I'm going into my 10th season now, believe it or not. I know, I don't know what happened. So I was a power player and ice girl for about 5 years. And when I went to try out for that, actually my mom was the one, she's like, you got to do this, and I always wanted to, and she dragged me to tryouts that first year. And so I have to thank her for all of that. But being a part of a team again and being in that environment was so cool, and being able to skate, we're scooping the ice during TV timeouts, so it's like you're staying in shape, you're getting to be a part of this team. And then it was actually my first season when one of my bosses was handed me a microphone to do a stand-up, and they're like, hey, like, do you have experience doing this? Like, that was really good. I'm like, no, but like I kind of grew up in the commercial world, and I was all over the place. And, it always enjoyed that, and that kind of is what stemmed. All of a sudden I was like, wait, this is my career path. I need to be in hosting and reporting. I kind of knew I belonged in sports, knew I belonged maybe in entertainment, but didn't really have that huge of a passion for the entertainment side. And then, yeah, that's kind of what stemmed everything. But I think my journey through all of that, so I did ice crew our power players for about 5 years. And then it was like my third season, they were giving me more hosting work and opportunity. Cool. In a way, I kind of just used it as an internship, right? I would go and just bug my bosses and producers and like, hey, can I get on camera? Can I get on the microphone? Can I do anything? And and it was thanks to them for even allowing me to kind of make another role within my role, if you will.
And then you've been through media trainings, you've gotten to work with PR team and the production teams. Those teams kind of are the teams that work behind the scenes that do such like a lot of the work that we just don't get to see. Have you learned a ton from them? What are some of the things that you've learned from them and just how you go about doing your job today?
Yeah, I think gosh, the media training is something like you can't teach. And actually my automotive job also, I went through a ton of PR training on that side of things. But I think working behind the scenes, you don't realize how much goes into like, even like one shot or a live shot in the arena. I mean, we have a full production crew of 30 plus people who are in the rafters or downstairs and all that kind of stuff. But no, even when it comes to our PR team, I mean, it was Karen Lynch at the beginning of my time when I first started with the Ducks. She was working for us as a PR, and she was the one who kind of was like, "Hey, I want to involve the power players more. I want to see them on TV." So my first season, she took us on a media tour, and we did all our stops during playoffs, because instead of the players, it was really us who would get up and kind of talk about the organization and the games and like what's happening and what we're looking forward to. So we went to KTLA, we were on Good Day LA.
Yeah.
I can't even remember. It was like 6 places in one stop, and that also kind of stemmed like, hey, this is, I think, definitely what I want to be doing. But she put so much work into our program too at the very beginning, and making sure that like, hey, we knew what we were saying on camera, and like, how to talk, and what specifically to talk about, and points to hit, and all that good stuff. So I think just seeing their structure of things, because really, they're kind of feeding everything that you're saying or supposed to be saying, even on live TV.
Absolutely. Now, automotive and hockey, two very different things to be hosting. How did you get into the automotive side of hosting and being in that position?
So I would say it was about 6 years ago when I was really trying to get more heavy into hosting. I had a friend who was doing some automotive stuff, and she's like, "Hey, you should, check this out. I might have a job for you." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, maybe." I just, I want to get more experience more than anything. So I kind of fell into it with an agency actually, and then got brought on with Toyota and started traveling with them, and it kind of turned into something even bigger than I thought. And so I've done that for about 6 years, where I would go around to different, auto shows, races, stuff like that. We have a live talk show that we do where we're actually talking product about, vehicles. And then what's really neat is what got my interest is that we would actually have a number of athletes that we would be interviewing at these shows. So Toyota represents, a bunch of Team USA Olympic athletes. So that really kind of tied my worlds together. And then I've also, interviewed different players and stuff, and it made everything kind of come round. And then like even just this week, so random things will come with, my work with them is I just interviewed Taylor Rapp from the Los Angeles Rams.
Very cool.
So, kind of more live appearance stuff. And then I've in all of that, but I think it was more about the experience than anything. And then actually my grandfather was heavy into cars too back in the day. So that there was a little bit of like a sentimental thing too there. It's all kind of tied everything together. But yeah, I mean, automotive think is definitely second on my list, and like sports and hockey, number one. But it's afforded me a lot of experience as far as like the hosting and on camera world and all that good stuff.
Mentorship is a massive thing that I love to ask you guys about in this industry, because there are so many pieces and there are so many people to learn from. Has there been mentors in your career so far that you've just learned a ton from, or just people you go to constantly to ask for advice?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I've had so many, and I feel like in like stages of life too.
Yeah.
In kind of where you're at. I think when I first got into hosting at the Ducks, when I was still a power player, my direct like boss and producer and director was Davin, and he was absolutely amazing. Like he was someone who I would go to and just bug and be like, "Can we, rewatch these things that I recorded and these drops I did, and what do I need to change?" And it was because of him, he guided me through growing into being a host. And I think those people, especially at the beginning, are so important. And still to this day, he just actually moved on and he's directing over at the Angels across the street.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I got to work with him for almost 10 seasons. So I still go to him to this day for advice because, you know, they've been in it for so long. But you know, another person too would be Kent French, who's one of our broadcasters for Sports West. You know, a few years back, he totally took me under his wing and I'd come in and I would just shadow him and see everything that he's doing, because he also started as an in-arena host and then worked his way to where he is today, which is kind of crazy. So his roots with the Ducks it's been neat to see his growth as well.
Very cool.
Then, yeah, I think more recently, who you just had on your podcast too, is Carlin.
Yeah.
She's amazing, and she's been a huge role model and supporter, and it's nice because we're kind of, you know, close to each other as well.
I wish I had the energy that she does just to go and do things every single day.
She is, yeah, she's wild, but she's like, she's so great at what she does. Yes. And she's such a good and genuine person. And this industry is tough, you know, so when you get some good people and good mentors and like surround yourself with that, like I just feel like you become unstoppable, you know.
Absolutely. And I for the longest time never appreciated mentorship as much as I have, especially when I started working in corporate America or things like that, where it became such a heavy topic or a question that was asked of other professionals around us. And I like just picked it up and I was like, I have a bigger appreciation for it now. And you figure out where mentorship really is this massive thing that's so important in sports. Is just one of those that's right up there at the very top.
Yeah, it's so important. And I recently went to a WISE event that we kicked off the MLB All-Star Week.
Yeah.
Where Carlin was actually on the panel, and we had like Alana Rizzo and so many great people. Who else? Oh, Jill Painter Lopez was also on that panel. But those type of groups have become so popular and so important too. And like, yeah, that was the first one I attended live in person since COVID and everything. So it's neat. And the growth of women in sports is like
massive.
Yes.
Massive. It's massive. And I have such a massive appreciation for that as well, that I love that it is becoming more of a regular thing, that women in the sports world, it's normal and it's a regular thing, whether you're a fan, whether you're a reporter, whether you are behind the scenes as a producer or something. I just love that is becoming so regular, and there's such an influx of females coming into the ring for sports.
I totally agree. And yeah, you know, so many females are just paving this path, right, you know, in this way for so many other people, you know, to pass this on to generations to come, which is, I think, so important, just to show everyone it's like, hey, this is possible. Just because we're female, we can be in sports. And to be honest, I think we're overtaking the industry.
I agree. And you love to see it. I'm like standing up and clapping every time I see it. I'm like, yes. It makes me so happy.
Become more regular, you know.
Oh my God, yeah. Like it shouldn't be a headline anymore. It should just be a regular
Exactly. Yeah.
I am the type of person for these podcast episodes where I prep really hard. And I know that prep in the world of sports is not an unfamiliar thing to you guys. Do you go hard with your prep? What does your prep look like for games and even the automotive industry?
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to, as you probably know, just research, right? I mean, there's some you know, times where it's like, you know, especially with our in-arena games, if I'm in-arena hosting it, you know, maybe sometimes I'll get there and I get all my information and drops and marketing stuff and everything that's changed. Like anything I prepped the night before, okay, it's 3 hours before the game and everything's switched up. So there are games that are like that because, you know, like live is live and that kind of happens. But I mean, generally, I'm a night before, a few days before type of person. If there's an interview in particular coming up, you know, I definitely like research everything. So football, for instance, is a little bit more not foreign to me, as in I know the game, but you know how we study teams, right?
Yes.
So when I had this LA Rams player just Friday that I interviewed, I'm like, okay, 2 days before I got to get this down, you know, make sure and researching everything about him. And I think, yeah, the more prepared you are, the better. That's like, someone told me a long time ago, and this came back, I think, when I used to do commercial stuff, like when I was young, but it was like luck favors the prepared. And I feel like that always stuck with me, because I don't think you can necessarily be over prepared. I think we have a certain knack as to being like, hey, we can do this on the fly and do things live. But generally, yeah, you always have to have some sort of idea of what you're doing.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I forget who I was just talking to, but I was like, you kind of get to the point in your research where you're like, I legitimately don't think I can go any further, because you've gotten to the point where you're like, okay, you're seeing the same thing in all the sources. You can't go farther down that rabbit hole anymore. But I prep so hard, and I have an appreciation for it, because it allows me to. I've never met you before in person. I've never met, this is our first time meeting, but I have an appreciation for the prep, because it allows me to at least get a little bit more information about you, so it doesn't seem so foreign.
Yeah, exactly. No, and yeah, that is so true, because you don't want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, because
Right.
that's
Right.
totally terrifying.
It's terrifying.
Personally, I could not do that, but yeah, definitely, like, I'm someone, yeah, who always is, I feel like, a little over, I don't know if there is over prepared, but I'm like, I'll go that extra mile. But you're totally right, where you hit that point where you're like, okay, there's nothing else that I can
Yeah.
find out about this person. Like,
Yes.
I'm a bullet points person. I'm like, I jot down, right, like 5 solid things. I'm like, okay, we got it, and then here's
Yeah.
a few for extra credit.
Yes. Here's a little bit extra just in case.
Yeah.
With your 10 years of experience that you've had, have the nerves calmed down? Are the nerves still there when you go into when you go into hosting?
I think, gosh, always a little bit, I
Okay.
mean, it's always something about the first live hit of a game. And I think it's like you get a little bit of that jitter, and then it's like after that first one, you're like, okay, I got this. But yeah, I think it's natural. You kind of get used to the jitters, and they don't become as much. Or like the very first game I did, I think I wanted to almost throw up. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, I'm still a power player, and my boss is like, hey, you can do this. We want you to get on the mic tonight, and it's Ducks Angels night. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. Okay, sure, I can do this. In my head, I totally bombed that, but I've come a long way since then. But there always are those moments. You always get a little bit nervous, but I think for me, it's like you just get in this environment and in front of this crowd of people, and it's like the lights go on, the mic is live, and the nerves are all of a sudden just gone. But it's those like few seconds before, right? The anticipation leading up.
Absolutely. I always try to tell people, I'm like, there's a huge difference between watching sports live and watching on TV. And live, there's this like energetic feeling, or like this energy that you can't put into words on game days. So I love game days, are my absolute favorite, because it's just this whole new sense of energy and being around all these other people. Is there a favorite time of your day on game days that you're just like, this is heaven, this is why I love sports, this is why I love what I do?
Oh my gosh. I think it's probably, gosh, that first hit, you know what I mean? But there's also something that I love about getting to an arena early, right? It's dead. The only people who are entering, you're coming down the ramp, you're, going through security. And it's just an empty arena of employees getting stuff set up. I mean, I've been walking into Honda Center for, going on 10 years now, and I still see the same faces. Like, it's still the same security since I was a power player. It's still, the same ushers. It's still the fans. It's like, there's something about the walkthrough of the arena and just getting there that I love. And, you probably know this too, but like, there's something about the smell of ice, right? There's a hockey arena. It's like you walk in and you get like, I'm home. Like, know.
And well, for me too, it's like every arena you have your smell. And like, if you've been growing up in an arena, like as soon as you walk in, you're like, I'm home. Like I am home. And so like we have right next to each other is of course the peanut stand and then these cinnamon rolls. So I like walk in and you smell it and I'm like, this is it. This is home for me.
So neat. It's something just, yeah, it's something
Yeah,
familiar. And it's funny because I'm like, not everyone gets that, right? Unless you're in the world of hockey, I feel like
yeah.
you don't get it.
I always say to everybody has like their favorite smell and their favorite sound. And I'm like, my favorite sound is puck on stick
Yes.
cross ice. I'm like, it's my favorite. I don't know why, but it's just one of those that's my favorites.
Yes. Or I'm like fresh ice, right? I'm like when no
Yes.
one's hit the ice and you just hear that first skate or that blade, I'm like, yes.
Watching I always say all the time, the so satisfying videos you see on social platforms when you see a Zamboni come across the ice and just completely slick it, and you're like, this is satisfying to watch.
It is. I know after everything's
Yes.
all poured up. Of course
Yeah.
we like that too, but
And then you see them come out and the goaltenders go and just completely destroy their area. And you're like, all right, well, that lasted for all of 5 minutes.
I know when I used to actually scoop the snow, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like when the first time I think I went out there. Well, it's funny actually. When I was 11 and I was still figure skating, I performed during intermission at one of the games,
Love that.
which was so cool. But I was more into figure skating then, and so I go and get on the ice, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because they didn't jam it before, and I'm like, how are we supposed to skate on this? And then fast forward like 10 years later when I became a power player, I'm like, oh, this is actually my job now is to scoop up this mess.
It's a full world come back around kind of moment for you.
Totally.
Yeah. We've talked about it a little bit. 10 years in the world of sports. What has it been like for you as a female, just kind of in this industry, in this very crazy industry that's been changing?
I feel like yeah, I've definitely seen it change a lot, but things have shifted, and I think that we're in a way becoming more like that program is even on a more athleticism type of way, but also still really involved with the crowd where things have changed a little bit. But you know, I think more than anything, I think I've seen a growth of just women in
Yes.
sports in general. I think like there's more female hockey fans like than I've ever seen. Like over my
Yes.
time, especially with the Ducks organization, like the growth of just female hockey, even youth teams, and we have like the Lady Ducks, and
Yes.
they are awesome and
Yeah.
they're so cool, and we do so much with even our outside programs, bringing them into Honda Center. So I think from when I started to now, the young age of even girls in hockey is so cool to see, and I think the growth of that. But I've kind of grown with females growing in sports.
Yes.
I feel like the last 10 years have been so impactful. But so I think just keeping us around, keeping us in the stands, keeping us, involved in all these different organizations, and sports teams, like it's yeah, the females are dominating.
For sure. And I told this story not long ago to somebody, and I was lucky enough that my dad is a massive sports guy. We grew up in Carolina Hurricanes arena, and my sister and I were at the game 7 when the Hurricanes won the Stanley Cup, and we've been lucky enough to be through the playoff runs with the Hurricanes for the last few seasons. And my dad commented this season, he said, it's amazing the growth of the game. He said, 05, 06, when they won, you didn't see a lot of women in the arena. He said, now you look, he said, it's a completely diverse fan group that is there. And it is so cool just to be able to see an out of market team too have such a diverse crowd of people, which is so awesome because we rally, we love our Canes, but it's so cool to see the whole population just diversify with the game.
Oh my gosh, I know, yeah, and it's especially over the last few years, and I think even coming back after the pandemic, and you know what I mean. It's like you're seeing so many more women, like every which way, from young ages to older ages. It's been really neat to see.
For the younger generation that is getting ready to come up and wanting to be in the same seat that you are, do you have a piece of advice that that you give people, or that you would give somebody wanting to get into the sports industry?
I think honestly, I know this sounds cliche, but just don't give up, because I think you're going to hear 1,000 no's before you hear yeses, right? And I think at the end of the day, it's all about the connections, right? Not, necessarily the people, but the connections and the impacts that you're making on these people who may be a boss to you one day or may have some sort of opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, I think what I always took advantage of was getting to know every single person in the organization, every department. And for me, really getting to know even everyone in our broadcast department, because eventually that's a direction that I would like, to more go, So I think, just don't give up. And at the end of the day, like there's always going to be those no's, but it doesn't mean that's going to break your career.
Right.
And mentorship, like, when I first started, I didn't realize how important that is, but it really is good to have a good support system, more than anything.
Absolutely. One of my college professors always beat it into our heads when we talked about sending out pitches or asking for help. She'd always look at us and she was like, what's the worst they could say? No. And it's one of those things that's like completely and utterly stuck with me. Like, don't be afraid to do it. What's the worst they can say? No. That's it. They can say no or not respond, and then you move on and you find somebody that will help you, or will, you know what I mean, like will further you to connect with other people. But I so resonate with that no, because it's just what keeps you going, quite honestly.
It is, yeah. And there's always something about it too. It kind of ends up lighting a fire. And I always, and I'm like, I have to take my own advice sometimes too, but it's like, just use that as fuel, because it's like, just because one person says no doesn't mean you don't necessarily belong in the industry or this isn't your path. But not only that too, but just being a good person and easy to work with, because talent is talent, but being a good person behind the scenes and just showing that hard work ethic and that you are easy to work with, I feel like that always goes such a long way too.
Yes, absolutely. It's kind of like how we talk about all the time, or we see on the news. You never want to be the guy in the locker room that's like the poison that they talk about. You always want to be the dude that comes in, or the girl that comes in and is the positive one, or is the one that is willing to help you in any way possible. You just never want to be that person that you hear gets traded from team to team to team, or in that sense.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah. And helping others. It's like being that mentor for other people too, because I feel like that actually helps you grow as well.
Yes. Yes. And that builds leadership skills and all of it, which I think once again gets taken granted for. Like, even if it's just that one person that you have underneath you that's like an intern or something, it helps you as well on top of helping them.
No, it's so true. It's so true.
Allie, my last question for you is just, what inspires you?
Oh my gosh. I think, well, the growth of sports in general, and in hockey in particular, I think the growth of that. But honestly, my family. I think it's my supporters. My mom's literally been like my number one cheerleader my entire life. So without her, I'm like, I would not be here today. But I think you push hard for your family, right? It's like they inspire me so much. And I just recently got married in February. So my husband too, he's been a huge supporter of me. But ultimately, I think I just love what I do. I love being around sports. I like making a difference, and I want to be a role model too for younger generations to come into this.
I love that. I love that. Now, the real question is, does the family humble you?
Yes. Always.
I was about to say, with two brothers, I would hope they humble you from time to time. I have a younger sister, and she, without a doubt, she humbles quickly.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think everyone keeps each other in check a little bit,
Oh,
right?
the group chat is never calm. There is always somebody that's like, calm down. You
Yeah,
just you need
yeah,
to.
I know, right? And I'm like, we have Italian in us too, so we can get all,
Oh God, yeah, that's
but
a good group chat.
it definitely is. It is good, but I think it's nice because we're all we're all so close. My dad actually lives in Colorado now, but we're all in a group text every day, and he was just out here yesterday. But yeah, it's I think staying close to your family, that's what helps keep you grounded more than anything. And without them, it's like I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah. Allie, I thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me. If you guys do not follow this incredible woman, all of her socials will be linked down below. I'm excited. We're counting down the days for hockey is coming back.
I'm like, come on, I'm ready for it.
It's like every team is posting the jersey of whatever number correlates with the countdown. So I'm like, I'm here for it. We've seen a lot of the countdown already. So I'm excited, and new season's right around the corner. So
So excited. Thank you so much, Danielle.
yes, absolutely. And as always, I will see you guys back here next time. Bye, y'all.